My name is Rosalba Dominguez. Welcome to Murray City Council, February 6th, or sorry, I'm ahead of myself, February 2nd, Groundhog Day. And we are going to go ahead and start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. I am going to go ahead and conduct it. And let's see if everyone's ready. All right, let's go ahead and start. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice of all. Thank you so much, everyone. Go ahead and be seated in the chambers. All right. We are going to go ahead and start off with approval of minutes for council meeting January 5th, 2021. Do we have any changes, any corrections from the council? Can I get a motion?
I'll move approval for the minutes that you just said. Let's see.
Okay, for January 5th. All right.
And I'll second. Thank you, Rosalba.
You're welcome. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
All right. Thank you, Kat. Go ahead, Brooke.
Ms. Turner?
Aye.
Mr. Hels?
Aye.
Ms. Martinez?
Aye.
Mr. Cox?
Aye.
And Ms. Dominguez?
Aye. All right. The motion has passed. Thank you so much, Brooke, for that. We are going to go ahead and move. We have no special recognition at this moment. We'll move ahead to citizen comments. And please go ahead and email your citizen comments in the meantime or in the future to city.council@murray.utah.gov. Again, comments are limited to 3 minutes. Include your name and contact information. Jennifer, go ahead.
So tonight we have 3 citizens on our Zoom that want to make comments in person, and then after they're done, I will read one email. The first one is Catherine Klotovich, and I apologize if I messed your name up, Catherine, but go ahead and unmute yourself and make your comment. You've got 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Catherine Klotovich. I live at 4374 South Main. That is phase 2 of Metro at Fireclay. First of all, I'd like to thank my representative, Ms. Martinez, for making sure that I had access to this meeting. My purpose today in speaking to you is about the increased crime rate that we have. It's become intolerable, especially in my building. We've had 3 people increase our crime rate that has included vehicular theft. There's been weapons, drugs, and a large quantity of stolen items that were found in the apartment. This person has been evicted. However, because of their presence, they have brought in other residents that have caused problems and escalated into a homicide about 3 weeks ago. My concern is that this had a lot of the petty crimes in the beginning been taken care of and addressed in a timely, forceful manner, which within the police's ability, many of these crimes would not have happened. It's easy to say that crime doesn't matter, it's just going to go away, but I'm here to give you a face and a name. I'm a 47-year-old single female who is so invested in her community and its safety that I patrol the Trax parking lot and my building so that those in my community are aware that there's another set of eyes on my community because I value it. Yes, I'm a renter. I chose this building because I was supposed to be secure, and the Murray Police Department had an excellent reputation. Unfortunately, outside of Sergeant Fernandez, who I've spoken to several times, the police department's been remiss or flat out unempathetic as to what's going on here. This problem will continue. It will drain city resources, and somebody is going to get hurt. And like I told my representative, Ms. Martinez, I'm willing to be that person because I don't want it to be a child or a vulnerable person. I'm in the position where I have nothing to lose except my life, and I will freely give it so that this community can be a safe one. I want my granddaughter, I want to make the investment now so that my granddaughter has an opportunity to grow up into adulthood into a safe environment. Today, it's vehicular theft. A few weeks later, it's one homicide. How much is that going to cost the city and its citizens into the future if this is not addressed now and remediated, and the community and each citizen is encouraged and enabled and empowered to protect their community? At a 47-year-old female who's I'm eclipsing to middle age, I shouldn't have to be walking the parking lot to make sure that my community's safe. That's the police's job. And I have contacted them on numerous occasions offering my services. I have been denied. I am now hiring attorneys to make a point to these punks. Don't mess with my neighborhood. I'm not the only one who feels this way. I'm speaking for several residents in my building. I'm encouraging them to speak out as well. But please take preventative measures to keep this community safe. I understand there's high density and low income housing here, but that does not excuse poor behavior, and it doesn't excuse the police department from being involved in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. The next speaker we have is Roy Barty.
Yeah, Barty. Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, my name is Roy Barty. My contact address is 435 West, 400 South, Salt Lake City, Utah, Suite 305. I'm here this evening to address business item number 3 on your business items agenda later tonight. I'm against business item number 3, the consideration of an ordinance establishing a temporary land use regulation relating to mixed-use development, and ask you do not approve the ordinance. If you pass this ordinance after reviewing and potentially approving the Howland Partners application to amend the general plan and change the zone to MU, also on tonight's agenda, and then pass this ordinance, it's completely unfair and appears biased against the R.C. Willey and Sports Mall applicants who have active applications and were on the agenda in January, but pulled those application or those agenda items from the agenda to address council's concerns. Secondly, the city master plan is not a fixed document. It is meant to be an evolving document. It is designed to be amended, especially as economic and demographic conditions change. And then finally, let me remind you and point out that the mixed use zone land use code has the policies and framework in place to address your concerns about potential mixed use development. Section 17-146-050G and G1 through 4 of the Mixed Use Land Use Code provides the framework for the planning department to guide the project and ensure the infrastructure is in place to service the project and ensure an appropriate design is developed. In part, Section G states, a master site plan approved by the Planning Commission is required for mixed-use developments located on parcels greater than 5 acres. The Planning Commission shall address the following when considering a master site plan: building orientation, central features, outdoor spaces, and a mixed-use development that requires a master site plan shall be approved in conjunction with a memorandum of understanding between Murray City and the developer. The MOU shall govern requirements for the timing of the installation of improvements, performance on construction of critical development components, and shall further memorialize the requirement for development of the several buildings and parcels as contained in the master site plan and other project approvals. Since the R.C. Willey, Sports Mall, and Howland site are all over 5 acres, the preceding applies. This is where you get to direct the developer to provide all of the studies and reports you need to be assured that the infrastructure can handle any capacity increases, if there are any. You can address stormwater issues like at the R.C. Willey site. You could solve that problem by requiring the new developer to detain and retain stormwater on site and stop dumping that water directly into private homeowners' yards. There's a lot of latitude afforded to the city during the master site plan approval process. There's no need for a pause since policies are already in place. It is my request that you will not pass the proposed ordinance, allow the other mixed-use requests to be heard, and address all of the infrastructure, density, and design concerns during the master site plan and memorandum of understanding approval process. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Bruce Broadhead.
This is Bruce Broadhead, not Marion. It was about 47 years ago that we entered into a journey, a public-private partnership with Murray City to provide and to build the sports mall on 9th East. Approximately 20 years later, it was required by the legislation that we either purchase the property or Murray City operate the property. Murray City, in discussions with us, decided it would be better for us to operate and own it. And we wrote out a sizable check to Murray City to purchase the sports mall. And then it wasn't just a few years later that Murray City decided that our facility wasn't enough, and they built their own facility. And then the county decided that they probably ought to build another facility, and they built the facility on our east flank in Holiday. And so we have within close proximity, I think the closest proximity anywhere in the valley, 3 multi-purpose athletic clubs. With the unforeseen pandemic that we're in now, and with the gentrification of the east side of Salt Lake, our business model has changed substantially. And we would like to find another source of revenue for part of our property, which is our ideal goal, which would require asking you for a mixed-use zone. We are only on the front end of our journey trying to figure out what would be the appropriate facility to merge our buildings to merge in. And of course, we normally in a process like this go to the community, our neighbors. We go to the planning commission members and the staff, the city commission members, the council members, and other professional people who are involved in the design and building of apartments. We're only at the front end now, and I see on the agenda a moratorium, and so I'm concerned that without being able to enter into a dialogue, that all of a sudden we're stopped from even pursuing the planning of alternate uses to our property. And so we would ask for your consideration to let us proceed ahead and in a cooperative fashion with all of the vested parties, and we hope that we can. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Bruce. Our final citizen comment is from Paul Miller, and I will read that into the record. My name is Paul Miller, and I live at 724 Tripp Lane in Murray. I wanted to add a comment to the EV rate discussion. In my view, as an EV owner, the rate on EV charging stations should be free. EV owners are already paying more in registration fees to offset not only the taxes lost to the state from gasoline revenues, but also to fund the installation of these stations. Essentially, we have already paid to use these stations. In Salt Lake City, most of the publicly owned stations do not charge a fee. Murray bills itself as a transportation hub for the greater Salt Lake City area. Charging for EV vehicles at stations dissuades EV owners from traveling to Murray to do business. Thanks. And that is all the public comments we have tonight.
Great. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Thank you, everyone who made a public comment. We will be in touch soon, and hopefully we can address some of what your concerns are. So I appreciate it. We're going to go ahead and move on to our consent agenda and consider confirmation of the mayor's appointment of Lori Densley to the Murray City History Advisory Board to complete the remainder term to expire August 1st, 2021. Mayor Camp, are you prepared to present?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. As you mentioned, we have Lori Densley, who is going to be appointed to the History Advisory Board. She will be completing the term of Pam Benson, who is unable to complete the term. So if you look at the resume of Laurie, she's taught history for 30 years And plus, she has a great handle on the history of Murray. And she says in her resume, I think being a member of the Murray History Board would be a great fit for me. Well, we agree. And we ask for you to approve this appointment of Laurie Densley this evening. I'm not sure if Laurie is on the call tonight or not.
I don't think I see her. Jennifer, is Laurie on the call?
I don't see her. I don't believe she is.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Mayor. I will take a motion.
I'll motion that, Rosalba. This is Brett.
Okay, thanks, Brett.
I'll say hello, Laurie, because if she's not online, I know or if she's not here with us, she's watching. Trust me. So I've known Laurie for, oh goodness, as long as she says she's been a history teacher. So anyway, this is a great honor for us. So I would move that we approve confirmation of the mayor's appointment of Laurie Densley to the Murray City History Advisory Board to complete the remainder of a term to expire August 1st, 2021.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. It has been motioned and seconded. Brooke, can you go ahead and call roll?
Ms. Turner,
Aye.
Mr. House,
Aye.
Ms. Martinez,
Aye.
Mr. Cox,
Aye.
and Ms. Dominguez.
Aye. Congratulations, Lori, and we look forward to see what you bring to the History Advisory Board. Thank you so much. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to our first public hearing, and that's consider an ordinance relating to land use amends the general plan from general commercial to mixed use and amends the zoning map from CD to MU for the property located at 5157, 5177, 5217, 5283 South State Street, and 151 East, 5300 South in Murray. And Jared Hall will be presenting. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks very much. I'm happy to be here tonight and to talk with you about this. So I have a few slides to show you and talk through the application in both of its parts. And then if you have any questions as we go, please feel free to interrupt and ask me. Otherwise, I'll go through them and we'll ask the applicants here as well tonight, Gary Howland, and we can have him speak as well. But I just have a few things to go through to kind of give you a background on the requests. As you said, there's a bunch of parcel addresses there that I'm not going to go through again, but they total about 13.22 acres along State Street. And the request has two parts. There's a request to amend the general plan's future land use map from general commercial to mixed use, and a request to amend the zoning map from CD, commercial development, to mixed use. I want to go ahead and share this screen if I can. This is the property you can see here from the aerial. You should all be able to see an aerial photograph now. Is that correct? Yeah. Can you all see that? Okay. It's multiple parcels, but it's tagged together and known as the Point at 53rd. It's a commercial shopping center at the corner of 53rd South and State Street on the east side. You can see Murray Park to the east there, and then Costco just on that, just to the left of the property across State Street. Again, it is just over 13 acres, and it's an active and then busy shopping center. With that said, it is in the CD zone. You can see the CD zone here all in red, and around it the Costco and the IMC building there just to the north, also in the CD zone, and the open space zoning around it in the park, Murray's main park. The request is to remove that CD zoning and replace that with the mixed use zone. I did want to show you just a larger context. If we zoom out from the site a little bit, you can still see the site highlighted here, that 13.2 acres. The IMC property all here in the middle, their large parking lot. This is the Murray Central Station platform and UTA parking. It is in pretty close proximity to that. You can see 53rd South, the center of the city, Murray City Center District, just here to the north. I believe the property is about 518 feet from Murray City's property. And then this large Murray Park, this big open space facility to the east. So the property, as we said, is kind of centrally located along State Street, along a busy corridor. and the request is to change that zoning. The Howland partners would like to have the ability to introduce a mixed-use concept at this site in the future as things go forward. That doesn't mean necessarily the removal of the commercial components. As you know, mixed-use projects are mixed projects of commercial activity and residential activity, higher density residential activity. What they want to be able to do is in the future have the option to introduce some higher density residential to that already successful commercial facility. There are some changes or some differences between the mixed use zone that they've asked for and the CD zone that they're currently in. And I want to take the zoning first and then go back to the general plan's future land use map. So if we can talk about the changes or the differences in those two zones for just a moment. There is some difference in height, 35 feet in the CD zone when you're within 100 feet of residential, 50 feet if you're within 100 feet of residential in the mixed use zone. One thing to point out just is that there's not a lot of residential zoning nearby. The closest is across 53rd South out here, and that's actually the junior high school. So the height differences are not really in play for this particular property, although they are technically different. So landscaping and buffering, there's actually a lot more flexibility and ability to kind of, through site planning, deal with buffering that's necessary and things like that in the mixed use zone than there are in the CD zones. Parking requirements are lesser in the mixed use zone than they are in the CD zone, but for commercial, they're not too different. The biggest difference between the two zones is actually really the allowance for residential uses in this mixed use zone that does not exist in the CD zone. Otherwise, the uses are very similar. The kinds of commercial uses you can do in CD zoning are very similar to those of the mixed use zone. The main one being that you can have residential uses in the mixed use that you can't have in the CD zone. And you can't have automobile-oriented uses in the mixed use zone that you can have in the CD zone. So there's no vehicle sales, vehicle repair, that kind of thing in the mixed use zone that's been requested. Setbacks are very different, and we're going to come to that in just a moment. I want to share a slide or two with you to talk about that. But building setbacks in the CD zone and the public improvements that are allowed in the CD zone or required in the CD zone are very sort of standard suburban requirements and setbacks. You generally see parking in front of the buildings. Buildings are set back significantly. In the mixed use zone, we like the buildings to be out toward the street. We measure those distances not from the property line, but from the curb and gutter instead to sort of emphasize that point. And then the differences in public improvements are significant. They're all trained to create a more pedestrian friendly environment. So to talk about that a little bit, to the right is a slide of the current development. It's a well-developed commercial project, but it's very much in that vein of the CD zoning. You've got parking lot lights, you have parking islands of landscaping, you have landscaping buffers out on State Street, and the normal size 4-foot city public sidewalk running alongside that. It's a large transportation facility on State Street. That's not a very pleasant pedestrian environment. On the left is typical public improvements that are required in mixed use zones. This happens to be in Fire Clay, but this is the same type of distance and requirement that we require in the mixed use zone that's been requested as well. Street trees and furniture, bicycle parking, larger, wider sidewalks, and accommodated on-street parking are all part of that public infrastructure that's required. So that's a significant difference as well. I wanted to talk a little bit about the future land use map and how we get to this point as well. The future land use map is part of the general plan, and it calls out what are called land use designations as opposed to zones. They do have a lot of similarities with the zones, and sometimes it gets confusing, so I want to make sure that that's clear here. The properties that are in question are highlighted. This is, as you can see, they're in this general commercial land use designation. Parks and open space corresponds to that park and the open space zone that's in place there as well. And you can see that this area that's the IMC, it is currently zoned CD, commercial development, but we have slated it for professional office as a zone. It hasn't changed zones yet, but that's the category there. To the west here, you can see the mixed use zone around the transit station, central station platform. And just up at the top, the Murray City Center district zoning comes down to the park. This property, they've requested not only to rezone to mixed use, but Howland has also requested to amend the future land use map to support that rezoning to mixed use from this general commercial to mixed use. The map is kind of the map 5.7 of the general plan is the first thing that we look at in planning and zoning when we receive requests for rezones we like to see if that map physically supports a change. That is the first line. It's the first thing we look at, but it's not the only consideration. And I wanted to make sure that was clear tonight. It is one map out of the 170 some odd page document. So I want to go through a couple of other things that we reviewed as staff when we were looking at this application and working with the Howlands. Some general plan considerations. I mentioned that the general commercial designation is the one that's been applied, and that is true. However, one of the things we looked at as staff were the statement, was the verbal statement that coincides with that general commercial designation. And as you can see there, it reads, while this designation is primarily intended for large retail destinations, including regional shopping centers and standalone big box, it may also include mixed-use developments that are mainly commercial in nature and use. High-density multifamily residential complexes will only be considered as part of a larger master-planned mixed-use development. Smaller scale, medium density residential projects may be considered for neighborhood or community node areas. So built into that, the language that corresponds to the general commercial designation is an anticipation that we need to start looking at potentials for mixed use developments in those areas. In that way, staff has felt like this category, although it should be changed if we're going to rezone to mixed use, supports the idea that a request for mixed use is not wholly inappropriate. Another thing to consider is that the same statements for the mixed use designation, not the commercial designation, but the mixed use designation, indicate that the mixed use designation is intended for areas near, in, and along centers and corridors and near transit stations. This red box is drawn around the map that is part of the general plan that indicates where we have centers, located corridors, and our nodes. This particular location coincides with three of those things. A corridor, State Street, a very significant corridor that's going to become more significant when the bus rapid transit line is implemented there. The station village for the bus rapid transit station that's been identified on that map as well, and then the commercial center that is IMC, between IMC and the transit station. And then again, too, we're not far from the transit station node in this area. Those items also support the applicant's request for the zone change and the general plan amendment.
Jared,
Yeah.
can you go back to that?
Uh-huh.
Are these new nodes? Because they're not in the 5.7 version of the general plan.
So
Are these circles supposed to be nodes?
they're not new, but they're not the nodes that are on the 5.7 plan.
Okay.
The 5.7 plan is the land use designation plan, and it has its own version of nodes on it that are areas where we're supposed to consider new studies and things that would tell us more specifically small area plans and things like that. These nodes are on this map is a different map, and it's part of the chapter 5 plan or chapter 5 section of the general plan as well. But it's a plan that identifies these areas that we call commercial centers and city and retail centers. It breaks those down in order to show us those nodes. And these nodes are just the BRT station village nodes along that corridor. So they don't figure in the larger 5.7 plan. They're part of this smaller map that's included in that general plan. It's just another map.
Thank you.
So they're not new, but they're on a different map. Sorry. So it's adjacent to all those things as well. And we feel like as staff that supports the request as well. One other thing to be aware of is that the general plan, in addition to lots of different maps and a lot of really good background and historic data, if you have the mind to read it all someday, contains objectives and strategies that support that we use to kind of analyze requests that come to us as a touchstone for those requests. These different objectives that I've listed here, there's 4 of them, all come from chapter 5, which is the land use chapter of the general plan, which is the most applicable to this particular request. There are other things as well that can be analyzed and support or don't support, the key initiatives and transportation chapters, et cetera. But I wanted to focus on the land use chapter objectives that are supported or that offer support to this request. Objective 2 is to encourage revitalization along key transportation corridors. And as we already looked at, and the core of the city, as we already looked at, it's along a transportation corridor, this 22 acres, and it is also, or 13 acres, sorry, and it is also near the core of the city. Objective 6 is to encourage a form-based and mixed-use development pattern that connects downtown and the TOD areas through urban design. And I'm not going to go back to the slide unless you want to, but those public infrastructure differences are indicative of that kind of, we don't have a form-based zone that we use, but it's that form-based sort of aesthetic. And that is one of the things we want to see, connecting the downtown area that it's very close to the transit areas, which it's also on the way to. Objective 7 is to provide complementary uses around key civic spaces that include Murray Park, the library, and City Hall. And as you can see from the aerials that we looked at, this is west of Murray Park, east and just south of City Hall and north of the library. These are all key areas that it's very close to and would provide a good mixed-use project in conjunction with. And then lastly, Objective 12 is about supporting the IMC through compatible and complementary land uses. And the IMC is a large employment center. It's our largest employment center in Murray City and one of the largest in this section of the valley. And mixed-use development with higher densities and access to other services like the restaurants and things that are already on that site is a great compatible complementary use for something like the IMC as an employment center. Lastly, I just wanted to go over some of the data from the public meeting that was held at the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission reviewed on December 3rd. There were 42 notices mailed for a 500-foot distance around those parcels. Only one comment was received during that, and it was in agreement with the proposed change, hoping to see more walkability, et cetera. The Planning Commission did vote 7-0. I'm getting ready for the Super Bowl this weekend, obviously. 7-0 to recommend approval based on these findings. And I just wanted to highlight a couple of things in the findings that the Planning Commission made. The first of them being that the general plan, and this is a finding we always make, the general plan is written and provides for flexibility in the implementation of its own goals and policies. So while the map is important, as we've discussed before, and it does not necessarily call out mixed use here, it supports through verbiage and through other objectives and things, the general plan, this particular application staff feels like, and the Planning Commission felt. Second, the proposed amendment to the future land use map has been considered based on the circumstances of this property in accordance with that first finding. And we found it to be, as staff and the Planning Commission did, to be in harmony with the purposes and intents of the proposed mixed use designation. Again, along corridors, near station areas and around centers. Third, that proposed zone map amendment from CD to mixed use has been considered on the characteristics, and the potential impacts of the change have been considered and have been found to support the policies and objectives of the 2017 general plan. And lastly, that the proposed amendment is supported by the description and intent statements for the general commercial land use designation, which we looked at first, which recognizes, again, the appropriateness of mixed use developments, including higher density multifamily housing in that general commercial designation. So the Planning Commission, as we said, did vote 7-0 to forward it with a recommendation of approval, both actually applications, the general plan amendment to the map and the zone map amendment. And staff still supports those amendments as well. Do you have any questions for me at this time?
Council, do you have any questions?
Not right now.
Diane, Brett, sorry, I can't see you.
Sorry,
all,
like I
so-
said, not right now. I'm not for me. I'll wait for more discussion on it.
Okay, perfect. If the applicant, we'll move on to if the applicant would like to say anything and then go to the public hearing.
Great. Gary's here. I'm assuming he'd want to speak.
Go ahead and unmute yourself, Gary. Sorry. Gary, I think you're still muted. Sorry about that.
Mute myself. Okay, there we go. Sorry, I lost video and everything there for a minute, so I apologize. I don't know why I went off. So, I'm trying to figure it out. I've used nothing but Zoom for the last 6 months, so you'd think by now I would have figured it out. But first of all, I want to thank you for giving me the time to just take a few minutes and talk about why we approached Murray City about this change. And really what the differences are relative to what we have now versus if approved, what it will look like upon completion. I will say that the situation right now, when I first developed this property, I think I approached the city council. It was back in 99 or 2000. Doug Hill may know, he was there. But there were over 200 people in the small room there at Murray City Hall, all in opposition of this project. And it was without a doubt one of the most difficult projects that I'd undertaken. And now, literally 20 years later, it is without a doubt probably one of the best projects that we've ever had the opportunity to be involved with and own. I can't even begin to count or tell you the number of offers that we've received on this property over the last 20 years. And the pat answer is this property is not for sale now, nor will ever be for sale in the future. And the reason being, which everybody has heard a million times, is location, location, location. One of the biggest reasons why we approached the city when we did about the changes to the use of this development to a multi-use development and a plan was really brought on by the current economic conditions, primarily caused by COVID-19 is what really accelerated it. We knew that at some time in the future that we would be approaching Murray City and looking for a multi-use development at this site, primarily because of the way that people were changing their shopping habits. All you have to do is drive around the city and drive up and down major corridors around the city. I live out on 90th South. I grew up in Murray. All my kids went to Murray. I went to Murray. But if you come out to South Jordan, get off on the freeway at 90th South and head west, you'll see 8, 9 big boxes completely empty. Everything from Albertsons, Kmart, Granite Furniture, the list goes on and on and on. One of the things that we could see happening here with the Point at 53rd is when we did the Point at 53rd, this got kicked off really when the big boxes were coming about. You know, Best Buy, you know, was the big 800-pound gorilla. And, you know, there was a period of time actually back in 2008, 2007, where Best Buy came to us and was looking at potentially even closing their store because of the economy and whether or not they were going to be able to survive. But Best Buy, as strong as tenant as they are, as good as they are, Best Buy has really become a distribution facility where they're currently sitting. Best Buy does not want to leave. And actually, we hope and are working with Best Buy currently that they won't leave. We believe that Best Buy is going to reinvent themselves just like, you know, most of the other big box users. There are certain types of users that the big box will always stay around, you know, particularly in the soft goods use. Like, for example, Ross Dress for Less. They approached us a half a dozen times to come into our center, and they just went up. I noticed they just opened up on 64th and State, I think in the old furniture building across from the Fashion Place Mall. But Best Buy has 45,000 square feet. The only store that they've opened in the United States in the last 3-4 years is actually the one that is out, that done by CenterCal in Farmington Station. That was a 45,000 square foot store. And that store has struggled mightily since they opened. We believe that Best Buy, when we approached Best Buy, their lease, they had about 3 years left on their term on their lease. But like many other tenants, they approached us and they wanted a reduction in rent as a result of COVID-19 and drop in sales and different things like that. But prior, and I won't get into the specifics, but I will tell you this, but prior to 2002, A lot of things that you heard as a developer were co-tenancy provisions, exclusive use clauses. A co-tenancy provision is that if I signed a lease with Best Buy and then I got Barnes and Noble and Thomasville Furniture that was in there that's now Helm, and Mimi's Cafe that was in there, if Best Buy went dark on me, or if they closed their doors, all of the other tenants, because of that co-tenancy provision, had the right basically to go to a percentage rent or to terminate their lease altogether. And so retail has completely changed now to where developers will no longer give those kinds of concessions to tenants any longer. We can't afford to have a tenant come in and say, we'll go in, but we'll only stay in your center so long as this tenant stays open. If they leave, then we want to leave as well, or we want the right to go to a percentage rent. And so we knew that because people's, the way in which they shopped, with Amazon and online sales taking over, that everything was changing and the way people were shopping were changing. There are three words that I want you to and you've heard these many times, but I want you to think of this over and over again. And the gentleman that talked about, why, and again, I don't know why the sports mall or why RC Willey, was tabled and for what reason it was tabled. But the three words that I want you to remember are a walkable, livable community. Those three words are the most important things when it comes to a mixed use development. I've listened to the work sessions and the planning and zoning and everybody else say, geez, under this plan, Mr. Howland could come in here and build 1,000 apartments. Well, Mr. Howland could come in and build 1,000 apartments if he wanted to go bankrupt and basically make the center fail. There's no way in the world that we would ever put 1,000 apartments in there, because that would be one sure way to make the shopping center fail. We're not doing this to build an apartment complex. We're doing this to build a walkable, livable community. Jeff Neese, who is required by all developers and lenders, who is an appraiser, to use him to go in and do a study in a given area on the viability of an apartment facility and whether or not it will be successful. He's been doing it for 25 plus years. He did it for us on Murray. And he says in all the years that he has been doing this, there's only one other project that he saw that fit the realm of being a success and providing that walkable, livable community in Salt Lake as good or better than this, and that was Sugar House Park. And that was because they had the park, they had the university, they had the transportation system and everything else they had going for it. We have the hospital across the street, we have the park, we have tracks, which is less than 0.4 of a mile away. We intend to take advantage of every single bit of that. We anticipate and we hope, based upon our conversations, and there's no guarantees with anything, but Best Buy has a new prototype that they've come out with that is about 10,000 square feet. That they come in on the 10,000 square feet. They're more of a showroom where the Geek Squad's there to help people pick out what they need. They order it right there, buy it right there, and then from there they ship it out of their distribution centers. The problem is that they cannot afford to do that in areas where rents typically on State Street and 53rd in Murray are demanding $35, $36 a square foot in rent. They can do it where it's $8, $9, $10, $12 a square foot. And the only way you can do that is in the distribution facilities. But at 10,000 square feet, they can do that. Barnes and Noble was basically on their way out. I don't know how many of you have studied what's happened to Barnes and Noble. Barnes & Noble very much wants to stay. They took 22,000 square feet. How many of you don't have to raise your hand or anything, but how many of you saw the movie You Got Mail with Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan? The shop around the corner. The gentleman that they've hired that's taken over Barnes & Noble is someone like Meg Ryan. The new Barnes & Noble stores are around 6,000, 7,000 square feet. And they cater to the community in which they're opening. They have their own personality. And so Barnes & Noble very much would like to stay. They don't want to leave. We don't think that we don't think we'll lose any of the tenants that we have in our center currently. There are tenants we have in there, I will tell you, because they have to report sales. I can't give you those specifically, but we have one in particular that's a full service restaurant that sales are down almost 70%. And we were getting percentage rent sales out of them when they opened. It was their number 2 store in their entire chain. And now, they're barely eking along. And they've closed every other store in Utah but this one. There's one other one that they have, but they're not closing it. They're wanting to keep this store in Murray open because of the location. So again, our plan is to integrate this center and completely give it a new facelift, top to bottom. We're not going to go in and just, tear something down and make something look, haphazard. We're going to redo the center top to bottom as far as giving it a facelift. I can say this without a doubt, since 2002, my occupancy in this center has averaged 98%. I don't know how many shopping centers in Utah can say for 20 years that they've been at 98%. And we are even staying just slightly below that during COVID-19. We have only 1 or 2 tenants in that entire center that we've had to give some subsidies to rent, of which we've not abated the rent. We've just put it on the back of their lease and extended their lease because not one of them wanted to run the risk of having to leave the center. They all wanted to stay there. I wish that I look forward to the time when I can present to you the designs and the plans of what we have for this. It is remarkable if approved. It is beautiful and it is a pride of ownership property. It's not an affordable, when I say affordable, it's not a low income type project. It's not rents outside the marketplace, but it meets the market, it meets the area, and it's something that I think will really stand as a beacon for Murray City, which when when we got this approved, they wanted this to sit there on the corner and be something that Murray City could be proud of. And I don't think that of all those 200 people that were there in opposition of this project when I was approved back in 2001 or 2002, I don't think that you would find even a handful today that aren't glad and happy that the center is where it's at and that we actually completed the center. But I had to tear down the National Guard Armory. I had to buy the county fairgrounds. I had to tear down 5 or 6 homes. Doug was there. He knows what I had to go through and the hassles that we had to go through to get there. But this is going to be, if approved, and we hope that we do get your support, this is going to be a tremendous project that we know Murray City will be very proud of. And I see absolutely no decrease whatsoever in sales tax revenue. I see increase in both sales tax revenue as well as I see increase in property tax increment. We have had offers on this center at about, 50 million. The apartments alone, when complete, are going to be in the 75, 80, $90 million range just for the apartments without adding into all of the commercial side. So we're probably looking at tripling the value of the property tax increment on this center as well. That's the difference between us and say somebody else is just trying to get their property and go to a high density project. Walkable, livable community. We're doing the same thing down in Lehigh, where we have 100 acres down there. We're doing over 800 apartments down there next to Young Living, Adobe, along the bus transit line, across the street to Thanksgiving Point, and it's the future. It's where people they want to go upstairs, live, and then come downstairs. We'll have a small grocer that will be in there in the bottom where they can get milk, bread, and eggs. They can go to the restaurant. They can walk across and go to Tracks, go downtown. I've spent too much time, but anyway, we're excited about this center. I hope you can hear it in my voice, and I hope that we get the support of all the council behind us.
Thank you so much, Gary. We'll go ahead and move, or council, does the council have anything? Any questions? Okay, not yet. We'll go ahead and move on to public comment. Jennifer?
So we have one public comment for this item, and it's from Janice Strobel. So Janice, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and make your comment. You have 3 minutes.
There, looks like it did. Okay, guys, I think it's I want to commend you for what looks to be a hybrid council meeting going on tonight, where there are some able to be personally in attendance, and it just feels like maybe we're getting a little closer. So I think that I just asked, well, I have a question. I see that business item number 3 talks about kind of withholding zoning changes. I don't know how that applies to this public hearing. If this public hearing were to be approved, would the zoning change withhold happen on this also? So that's a question I hope can get answered. And I think that mixed use has definitely got a lot going for it. I just have some questions that I hope the council will consider. What the impact of increased density right in this location would mean for our city. What is being done to help with the impacts of increased traffic at 5300 South and State? I think it's already known as one of the more dangerous intersections in the valley. So how is increased traffic with families living nearby going to be, where's the safety measures being put in place for that concern? We also have a junior high and a high school. Students cross State Street there, they cross 53rd South right there. What's being done to help with their safety, or are we going to see a greater lack of safety for our students with that, with this increased density? The other thing is that we already have 2 developments in the southeast corner that are not yet but not yet near completion, so they're not actively going. And we have not been able to address how those developments are going to impact this area yet. It seems that it's a little premature to make these kind of changes when we haven't seen what those developments are going to be doing to that area. Then also, we already have approved for new development in the MCCD, which is just down the street, to be multiple mixed use developments to happen there. And they would all be facing and being butting up to State Street. State Street, we already know, is a very busy corridor. It is a state highway. It's busy. Do we know how mixed use right up against State Street is going to work. The only thing I can think of that compares to mixed use along State Street that we currently have in Murray is the Townsend and Iris apartments above Desert Star and across the street at the Harker building. Those aren't a very good example of being able to compare what mixed use will be like, because they're very small units. They don't really attract families or, multiple people living in one unit. So what will it be like? I think we're going to want to attract family units into these new mixed-use buildings. What is it going to be like having multiple mixed-use buildings right on State Street? Where is the safety for family units being right on State Street? I love the idea of walkability. Of course, we want that. But we do have a state highway we're dealing with.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Your time is up. Sorry about that.
That's fine.
That's
it.
Thank you so much, Janice. And I will be in touch, of course. Mm-hmm. And hopefully we will offer some more discussion here with the council. Council, do you guys?
Can I speak to what we've heard so far? So I want to thank our public comments and the applicant for speaking to us about his vision. I mean, my family sure does everything it can to spend all of our disposable income at point at 53rd. We absolutely love that area. My husband was very brave when he got his first vaccine shot, and we all went and got ice cream. And so we're just huge fans, and it was great to hear a little bit more about your vision. I do have concerns about the argument about transit hub. I think basing it off a bus line that's not operational yet is a little questionable, and I can't imagine anyone walking to tracks from there. There's not a clear, safe pathway. I think for a smaller amount of units, like the applicant spoke to, I know many people would love to live above a bookstore. That sounds amazing, but I have concerns about parking. I don't know how it will absorb the additional parking for residential, and that a change in zoning will, when we change a zone, we don't restrict hypothetical amounts of units, and I have concerns about that. I have huge empathy and sympathy for all of our businesses during this last year, and we obviously want you to continue to thrive as much as possible going forward. But I have concerns about this.
Before we move forward, let me go ahead and close the public hearing. I apologize for that.
Am I able to respond to any of the comments?
No, right now it's just for discussion amongst the council.
Okay.
I apologize, Gary. Go ahead, council.
Okay. When I first heard about this, I thought, wow, what a great idea. I still didn't like the idea of not following the general plan. We spent 2 years, $100,000 in creating the general plan, and I think it's important that we follow it unless there are really, really good reasons that make sense, and I guess I'm not quite convinced about that. My concern is it could go to 1,000 units, because I have to look at the land use and to the zoning, and mixed use could go to 1,000 units. And my concern is infrastructure. I don't think we've planned for that. I don't think we can accommodate it. And also parking, because mixed use, I think, only allows for about 1.25. Am I concerned that people will start parking in the park? Because I don't know how there could be enough parking. Transit is, I think, not very accessible. So that also concerns me. So people are going to have cars. So anyway, again, not following our general plan, I don't think it's a good idea for this. And initially I thought it'd be a really good idea, but as I did the kind of dug into the weeds, I'm just not convinced this is a good idea. So, and for the reasons I just mentioned.
Okay, Rosalba, I'll go. I'm just listening, and some of my thoughts are similar to others. The infrastructure very concerns me with Murray City, and then traffic is huge to me. Traffic, it's already crowded there, and traffic is something else that I'm concerned about. That's a huge thing that with mixed use right now that I'm concerned about is traffic. So I echo on some of those things. Thank you.
Dale?
Yeah, I'm going to play devil's advocate because I think there's some good arguments been put forth by the council, but also we have an obligation to make sure that our businesses are solvent, and things have changed. And I was a little hesitant as well until I heard the presentation by the applicant. And the applicant has been in Murray for a long time, has been a good citizen of Murray, and I don't believe his vision. I believe his vision of his property and Murray coincide. Traffic is going to be something we're going to be mitigating forever. It's going to do nothing but increase. And with the bus lines coming, you're right, they aren't here yet, but neither is this project. But I think we have an obligation also to help the landowner. He has a proven track record of being a good citizen of Murray and a good steward. And his presentation helped me make my decision on this. Thank you.
And lastly, I'll go. Do I think this project is best in the city and the placement? Yes, I definitely do. I think by knowing what you have you provide great a business model that we can follow. Unfortunately for me, what keeps coming out is the community and how community has participated within the general plan and where it's been. And this being my district, hearing even neighbors that may not have been within the circumference that have been notified, I've been in communication with them. And that includes their students that go to the school, the safety within infrastructure. If we could get, the reality for me is if we can get a lot of those things in line within the city and we have what we can to support a project like this, whether it's 1,000 units or less, I think mixed use would be the ideal placement for the city with this project. How that's going to look moving forward, I don't know. So there's still a lot of questions for me, and I agree with Diane and Kat on a lot of their points. I think we need to kind of take a step back before we go through and approve this project, but yet give it a little bit more boundaries and feel comfortable as a whole in moving forward. But I think I don't know what the vision is. I don't know what the plan is. And unfortunately, that's not my place to really know that right now. And I get that process, but I do have faith that it would be something amazing because of what you said of placement, location. We are one of the last cities to really develop. And I think you have a really unique property, and I think there's something great that can be done with this. And we just want to make sure we're protecting the areas around it, the park especially, and see how we go moving forward. At this point, I have no other comments. Anyone else have anything they would like to add? Council? No? Okay. I could just see you guys as little images on my screen. So, all right, we'll go ahead and move forward. I will I will take a motion at this point.
Can I ask a question real quick? Rosalba, sorry. You were talking.
Go ahead, Brett.
Melinda or Jared, a little bit about the infrastructure. Tell us a little bit of the thought process on going forward with that.
I actually just pulled up the council action form that was included in the packet to look at that. I mentioned in the RDA meeting a couple weeks ago that initially there were some concerns about infrastructure and utility capacity in this area. To back up even further, one of the things that we do when any project comes in as an application is we route the project to all of our different departments, and that includes police, fire, the public works. We have our water division that looks at it, sewer. We look at all of the capacity there. The city engineer weighs in, and if they have any significant concerns on the ability for, in this instance, a general plan amendment and a zone map amendment, for if there is a concern that the allowed density would not be able to be serviced, then we would note that in the application. And again, in this case, we had some question about that regarding the sewer capacity. So we asked Mr. Howland if he would mind putting his application on hold for a couple of months while we sorted through that and got the sewer. We had to even do some sewer modeling, and at any rate, the information came back that the capacity could be served in this area and that property for the densities that are allowed. So we do before these applications come to you and the city council, we do vet our ability to provide these types of services. The power department sees the applications. Now, as far as addressing traffic and some of those other concerns, that's something that we know will be addressed later on because we have to have a specific project. I mean, you can do a traffic study that would address the ultimate capacity, but it makes more sense for us to know exactly what an applicant wants to do, how many units they want to put in, and then the city engineer would require a traffic study to be done based on what the actual project or application would be, and that's the next phase of the project. So I think those were a couple of the questions that came up. Hopefully, Councilmember Hales, that answered the question that you had, but we'd be happy to address any other questions about that. I did also want to mention that parking, right now the project is parked for what the commercial uses are. And if it were to be rezoned, we would have to go in and recalculate the parking. The parking would have to be added in based on the new use that would be added in, which would be the residential. So what's over there now certainly wouldn't suffice for the added residential that Mr. Howland would like to do. But again, that was something that would be addressed at the next phase of the process.
Thank you, Melinda.
Thank you, Melinda. Mr. Howland, if you would like to kind of address any comments or concerns that we discussed, go ahead.
Thank you. First of all, we're 3 years away from really looking at moving forward with this. It's 3 years of work and study, and really we want to work with the city. We don't want to come in and say, this is what we have to have in order to be able to make this project work. That's no longer an issue because I've owned the property now for 20 years. What I don't want to do is I don't want to end up with a 45,000 square foot empty box and a 20,000 square foot empty box and end up having a Halloween store in there 3 months out of the year selling Halloween goods. Our lender contacted us, and we have a yield maintenance on our loan anyway. And even if we wanted to start immediately, we wouldn't be able to start without, some issues with our lender. So our plan when talking with Melinda was we wanted to be progressive and meet with the city early on to get feedback from the city council as well as from the citizens as to what they would like to see there at the corner of 53rd and State. The parking for the apartments it's a podium style project. What that means is that all of the parking for the apartments, which will not be even, it will be, right now we're thinking somewhere around 300 units total. But all of the parking for those would be new parking stalls that would be underneath the apartments. But underneath that parking would add an additional 40 to 50,000 square feet of retail that would be replacing the Best Buy and the Barnes and Noble. So we're not losing the retail that we have. We're keeping it with the parking that we have. And we're not taking any of the parking that currently is servicing the center and asking it to service the people that are going to be living in the apartments. The other thing is that our intent was to, if we could possibly work it out with the city, is to possibly do a pedestrian walkway across State Street so that people could safely walk across State Street and be able to go to the tracks. How that would come about, I don't know. Again, this is 3 years down the road. This is a 3-year plan, of something that we want to do, and we want the city's input, and we want their help in making this a project that everybody likes. Mr. Neese, who did the apartment study, believes that the number of cars that will be used because of the proximity of this is to the hospital, to the jobs and everything else will not be like other apartments where everybody is, they're going to use, tracks. They're going to use when the bus system is available, they'll use the bus system. And so one of the projects that we're doing similar to this, if any of you've been down in downtown Salt Lake City and seen Salt and Hardware, Salt developed hardware in Fourth West. They're working with us on our project in Lehigh. And the residents that live there, they go in, and from those that do have cars, they park their cars on a Friday, and they never pull their cars out because everything that they need is right there. Everything is within walking distance, so that they don't have to get in their cars, and so it doesn't put that strain on the traffic. But again, we want the input from the city to help us make this successful and have it still be a pride of ownership. We don't want to come in and tell you, hey, we have to have so many units. As I said, I would be crazy to try and put, 400 or 500 apartments there, because it would hurt my retail and it would hurt the center. I want to keep the retail and commercial viable, and I want those shops viable, and I need the housing in order to be able to make that happen. And that's what we're finding everywhere we go, is those communities that are the urban, where people, live where they work and, can get around without having to get in their car and drive everywhere, are what's being successful. And the cities that that don't have the luxury that we have of having a beautiful center across the street from the hospital with the tracks and with everything else we have going for it. I think that I wish that I could say, hey, you know what, I planned it that way. I knew all this was going to come about, and I would end up owning a center, and the tracks was going to be where it was at, and the hospital was going to be where it was at. I didn't know any of that. It was Chimney Ridge. When I originally bought it, it was going to be a shopping center across the street. So we're just lucky to be in the position that we're in, and we're hopeful that we can work with the city to address all of your questions, all your concerns, and be able to make sure that we don't, put people at risk, and put the kids at risk at the high school, at the junior high school. We were going to be the ones that were developing the junior high school ground. And we ended up not doing that for a number of reasons. But again, I guess all I'm saying is that I'm not here to tell you what we have to have. I'm here to say we want to work with the city. We want to be a partner with the city, that the residents and the city can be a partner with us to help this be a project that's pride of ownership and that everybody's proud of and that works for everybody involved. So.
Thank you so much. Mr.
Can I ask
Holland.
a last question?
Yes,
For
Kat,
me,
go
not
ahead.
Shutting anyone else down. So in the process, this is, I don't know, I've felt this torn about a vote since I've joined the council, honestly. It's an incredible location. I know we need more housing, but I want to make sure that we're not adding problems where we already have them or taking resources we don't have. If we do a zoning change, the next step is the project. What we find out there, does that limit the number of units possible and the amount of parking required? Or is it sort of a cat's out of the bag situation to Melinda and Jared?
Can I not put a limit on the units, Melinda?
So let me answer their question, and I think it may answer your question or go to your comment too, Gary. So that's a really good question. Thank you. You guys are being really thoughtful about this and asking some excellent questions, especially in light of the remaining agenda items. So the next steps would be after this is that Mr. Howland would work with us to bring forward a project. If the business item number 3 that you have tonight passes, then no one, including Mr. Howland, would be able to bring forward a project and submit an application within the next 6 months. So it's a little bit tricky right now to say what those next steps would be, but if it was approved and you approved the temporary moratorium, part of what we would do over the course of the next 6 months is work towards addressing the concerns that have been relayed previously to us in meetings, and working to make changes to the mixed use zone to get something that the council is more comfortable with on moving projects forward. So I hope that answers the question that you were asking, Councilmember Martinez. And then Gary, to go to your question, we really don't do any zoning by contract here in the city. And so what we've really tried to do over the years is get councils, and they're being very thoughtful about this and they're looking at it from the right perspective, but we have asked them to look at not projects, but allowed uses, and that would include then allowed densities. And that prevents what tends to happen in a lot of cases where a property changes hands and the public comes to expect, well, this is what they said in this meeting and that's what was promised. But a new property owner comes in and a different product gets delivered, and the public's expectations aren't met and trust is lost. And so we really just look at these general plan amendments and the zone map amendments based on what the current zoning allows and what the density and all of that would be as it's currently written and approved on the books.
Councilwoman Dominguez, could I say a few things just to clarify?
I have a question.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, go ahead. Or
Melinda, for Melinda.
Oh, okay. Diane, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Melinda, if we pass business item number 3, I thought it wouldn't go into effect until it was signed. And if we also pass this, it wouldn't apply to it since it had not been signed. Isn't that correct?
May I clarify? So,
Yes, please. No, that I was looking for a clarification.
so once an applicant, in this case Mr. Howland, submits a completed application and pays his fee, which he already has, he's vested. So anything we do on business item 3 has no effect on his project to move forward. That's the same with the Best Buy, I'm sorry, not the Best Buy, the RC Willey, as well as the sports mall. Those are vested. Anything pending as of tonight can move forward with its entire project. So a vote on number 3 has no effect on Mr. Howland.
That's what I thought. Okay, also, Melinda, so the current zoning is CD. Can you have apartments in CD, in the CD zone?
No, right now in our CD zones, there are no there are no residential uses allowed.
None?
Really with the exception of like an attached residence that you would find like with a storage unit. That's really the only type of residential use that's allowed in any of the commercial zoning. So there would not, he would not, as the zoning stands right here, he would not have the opportunity to add residential use into the commercial zone.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I've got a question. It's for GL. Could we table this and have, because there seems to be a lot of unresolved issues, table this, have the council submit questions to Melinda or whomever to have a further discussion so we feel more comfortable with this development?
That's a really good question.
I hate it when you say that. I'd rather you say yes.
It's first of all, at some point, the applicant is entitled to a decision.
Yeah.
Thumbs up or thumbs down. One way or another, he's entitled to a decision. If you believe as a council that you have legitimate concerns that could be answered in a reasonable amount of time, I mean, you can't let this just sit there for months while it's researched. If you think you could come back in, say, 2 weeks, you could probably table that. But if this is something just to delay it, then no, you'd be entitled to a decision.
Yeah, in my opinion, this isn't something to delay it. I think it's something to make the council, because what I've heard, it's not on the best road for approval. Because of some unanswered questions that we should have probably had answered prior to. So if we could, I don't know if the council's amenable to that, but when it comes time to a motion, I'd make that and put it off for 2 weeks to a month and make sure all the questions are answered, and then maybe we could make a more informed vote.
So it would be helpful in terms of notices that you provide a date certain to come back. That what's happened, just so you know, is the Tribune and the Desert News have changed the way that they take our public hearing notices, and there's fewer available, and so 2 weeks we probably wouldn't make unless you announced a specific date, of 2 weeks, that would be fine, date certain, or a month, date certain, that's fine too.
Let me ask a question. Can I ask a question, Mr. Howland?
Sure, yeah.
Mr. Howland, are you opposed to that?
Again, I'm not at all opposed to that because we're down the road and in the planning stages, and I want input from the city council, and I would like to present something that they are comfortable with and that works. Again, I can't emphasize enough that the retail environment is changing, and it's just, I've been developing real estate for 30 years, and to replace 60,000 square foot box the size that it is next to impossible in today's environment. And the center, not just this center, but every city, I believe, that has centers that are like this are going to have to come up with a way that works so that they don't end up with empty centers that become, problematic, and even more problems. You talk about the high school and the vandalism. Best Buy, has complained to us that one of the concerns that they've had about being there in the big store is that it is their worst store for vandalism and theft than anywhere, in Utah, because of, and they attribute that really to the high school. And there just aren't many. Well, there are very few 45,000, 30,000 square foot users out there, and the only way that you can do that is to change the dimensions of the shopping center in depth and width to be able to get it to work. Otherwise, it does not work. And that again, that's the problem. The problem isn't that, I'm wanting to do this because I have a desire to build, 200 or 300 apartments. I have a desire to turn and keep a project beautiful and viable and keep all the tenants that are there. But if Best Buy and Barnes and Noble goes out, then others are going to follow. That's where the co-tenancy, when I started in my beginning, they said, we will come here if Best Buy is open. We will come here if Barnes is open. If they're not there, then we have the right to go to a percentage rent deal. And so the trade-off now, instead of the Barnes and Noble, is that you provide some housing, so that you still have people that are right there that are utilizing the services and using those businesses to keep them open and keep them viable. And that is the difficulty that developers are having today that are in secondary markets. The advantage we have is we're on the hard corner, and so we have the ability to do that, if we can get something that complements these other tenants to keep customers coming back. And that's why the housing is needed. The housing isn't needed for anything more than, number one, it's a great place for apartments because of the park, because of the hospital, because of the tracks, but it's also going to create a market of people that live there that are going to go to those businesses and keep those businesses open and viable. If Best Buy and Barnes and Noble closes, then Helm closes, and then it's a domino effect of you end up with an empty shopping center. And then you have to figure out, you have to reevaluate what you're going to do with the entire thing. So.
Thank you, Mr. Howland.
Okay,
All right.
I have another comment or question, maybe.
Sorry, go ahead, Diane.
Rosalba.
Go ahead.
Okay, what we are considering here is not the project. It is the zoning change. So, you know, we can put it off a couple of weeks, but we still have the zoning change to be considered, and it sounds really good. It sounds like the project will be wonderful, but circumstances change. And so, you know, we need to consider the mixed use, which is what is the request. And that could be up to 1,000 units. So we need to know if we can accommodate that. And, you know, I just don't think we can. But am I right, GL? We're not considering the project. We are considering the zone change.
That is correct. It's just the zone change tonight.
So-
General plan amendment.
I mean, even though it sounds wonderful, and I'd love to see something like that there, like I said, circumstances change, and something may happen that,
So both of these steps, the general plan amendment as well as the zone change, are preliminary to an actual, more than just a concept idea.
And you need to vote on both, right? Or is it one and the same?
At some point, you'd vote on both, yeah.
Yeah, but I do, if I can just make a distinction. So I think the issue is getting somewhat clouded because we have the moratorium on the agenda. So Councilmember Turner is absolutely correct. What is before you tonight is the general plan amendment from the commercial designation to the mixed use designation, and then the zone map amendment from commercial development to the mixed use. And GL is also correct in saying that right now, Mr. Howland is fully vested in this particular application. He's paid his fees. That's why this item is before you tonight. And I think where a bit of a disconnect is that if this was approved tonight, he's still, and the moratorium were approved tonight, Mr. Howland nor anyone else in any of the mixed use zones would be able to submit an application for the next 6 months. And then during the course of the next 6 months, if any changes are made to any of those zones, their project would be behooven to those changes that are made going forward.
They will.
So it's a little, I think, cloudy because of the multiple actions that are on the agenda tonight.
Right.
okay.
So just for to be approved at the zone that we have on the books right now, because there's not an actual project application in for the design approval and the memorandum of understanding, he doesn't have vesting in that particular project because it doesn't exist yet. I don't know if I've explained that very well, and GL can counter it if I'm incorrect in that.
Yeah, can you clarify that?
Yeah.
Or
So-
Diane?
I completely agree. It is very cloudy. The vesting comes from an old case that is called Western Land Equities, and what vesting means is that once you have submitted an application, the ordinances in existence at the time of your application are the ordinances you go under. So we cannot change an ordinance and change what Mr. Howland has vested in. He's vested in the entire, whatever he comes up with. This is the whole reason that you vest, is so that you can't, so a city can't accept an application and then change the rules as it goes. So anything you did in the next 6 months to change would not affect his application. He has vested at the time he went to the counter, submitted the application, and paid the fees. So the ordinance, the mixed use ordinance, as it is right now, is what he would have to go under, and we can't change that. Now, if you, let me stop there.
Okay, because that's did I understand correctly that is not what Melinda has said? So I'm okay.
So I have another question on that. So I'm sorry that we're Mr. Holland, that you are our example in all of this. But let's say we move this forward and he comes back and he wants to design whatever in MU, in the MU zone, he has to resubmit another application. Is that correct?
So we're probably talking about maybe identifying applications. The application I'm referring to is the first application he comes in to say, I want a zone change. If you grant this, then he's vested. That zone is what he gets to build under, period. There's no more vesting he needs to do. There's nothing else. The application you have in front of you tonight is the one that's vested. So if you table it for 2 weeks, a month, whatever, he still gets the mixed use zone no matter what you do on item 3. You may deny item 3, you may approve it. But even if you approve it, he gets to move forward. And so would RC will if it chose to come forth. And so would Sports Mall, because they have already vested.
Sorry, I couldn't find my mouse. Anyone else have any comments or concerns from the council? Would we like, I'm willing to take a motion at this point.
I'd like to make a motion that we table this till the first meeting in March and give council members a chance to clear up any infrastructure or any other questions they have, and we bring it back the first meeting in March.
I would actually like to propose it to the second meeting just to have a little bit more time that we get it all.
Okay, I'm good with that. The second meeting in March?
Yes, so that would be the 16th.
Rosal, you seem good with that. I'll second that.
Okay, sorry about that. Any comments any discussion to the motions?
The only thing I want to say is we have to be very mindful of our obligations to the city and to the developer and to the citizens of this city. This is a unique situation, one that I haven't seen before. If we make a wrong move, that could be a ghost town in 3 or 4 years. If we make the right move, it could thrive. And the decision is which is the right move.
Okay, thank you.
Will it be a public hearing again?
Yes, it would have to be a public hearing is what I'm seeing nodding on my end.
Okay.
Would we have to, Jared or GL maybe, would we have to renotice? That's correct. We do have to notice again, correct?
I don't believe so, actually. Technically, I believe it'll be the same public hearing continued to that date in March. So if people receive notice and they're here watching, then they're aware that it's...
If you have a date certain, you do not have to renotice.
Okay, perfect.
So what day is that? Does anybody have that on
March
calendar?
16th.
March what?
March 16th.
Thanks, Rosalba.
Even though we've closed the public hearing,
You close the public comment portion of it, but not the hearing. The hearing's not really over until you've made a decision.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Good.
Okay,
Thank
do we
you, Jared.
need to vote on the motion? I believe we do, right, Brooke? Okay.
Ms. Turner.
Wait, hold on. Does anyone else have any other items on this or any comments? I can't see anybody in the council chamber, so if I can get it.
Sorry, no.
No.
Thank you. All right, go ahead, Brooke.
Ms. Turner.
Aye.
Mr. House.
Aye.
Martinez.
Aye.
Mr. Cox.
Aye.
And Ms. Dominguez.
Aye. And let me just say aye for now. I really want this to be something that we do hear from the public, and I want this project to be as great as Mr. Howland has told us. So just know that moving forward, let's go ahead and have those discussions be had in the meantime. So aye. Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to the next part of our agenda. And of course, to our next public hearing, and consider an ordinance enacting Chapter 17.67 of the Murray City Municipal Code related to residential chicken keeping standards. Melinda has given this to Jared, so Jared, go ahead and present.
Okay, so you can't really switch gears a lot more than this. So if I can go ahead and share this screen real quickly. We have this text amendment proposal that you've seen in the committee of the whole. We wanted to just present really quickly and show you the things for the public interest tonight. So this timeline you saw before, there's some information here that I'm not really going to go over, but there was basically a chicken ordinance proposed some years ago, and no action was ultimately taken on it. Recently, that ordinance has been revived again, and in looking at the old ordinance, staff proposed some different, some significant changes to that original ordinance that was proposed that failed, that we've brought to you now. We did look at a lot of other cities and what they're doing with chickens in order to produce this particular ordinance. Numbers of chickens would be permitted based on the lot size. These are all allowed in residential uses, single family detached residential uses and zones. Again, the number of chickens is based on the lot size. You don't get to very many chickens until you get to really the 12,000 square feet. And that lot size, as we discussed a little bit in the committee of the whole meeting, or sorry, that number of chickens, as we discussed a little bit in the whole committee of the whole meeting, is based on, they're not really herds. What are they? I'm thinking herd immunity because of all the COVID talk. Flocks. They don't do well unless there's about 4 chickens. So that was the reason for that number as the baseline. There needs to be a kind of a community of chickens. There are some standards for coops, setbacks from property lines, et cetera, coop heights and numbers of square feet per chicken allowed as well. These are all things that need to be taken into account. But again, one of the things we looked at in a survey that was done, and a large number of respondents, over 1,000 respondents to the survey, the great majority of them indicating that we should not require any kind of a permit for this, an application to say, here's how many chickens I want. We're going to come out and check your lot and make sure it all works. What the Planning Commission did vote to do was recommend to you as the council an ordinance that required the registration of owners to say, I'm going to have chickens on my lot. Here's how many I'm going to have. And we actually have, Zach in our office has been working on a registration form that can be dealt with through our city's website. So if you're a person who wants to own chickens and we have passed this ordinance, if it passes tonight, you would simply go to the city's website, find the spot to click to register for your chickens. It would ask you some simple questions. And then the thinking is, you would then register your property and your name and say, I'm the person responsible for the chickens. We're planning to have 4 chickens. And then it's got a link to say, we've read the rules that you have about coop size and all those things, and we can comply with that. And then we have a record of where we need to, we have a beginning place if we have complaints or problems and people have sort of stepped up and said, I'm going to abide by these rules. And I won't get into it, but there's a lot of psychological evidence to suggest that that really works with people. If they sign something or click a button and say, I agree with this, they tend to comply more than they do otherwise. So anyway, we did look at a lot of different cities in the Salt Lake Valley, in this county, most of them allowing chickens. You have all your data there. Again, these are again more cities that we've looked at, and the setbacks for coops, et cetera. So all of these standards that we have proposed have been based on this kind of research that Zach largely in our office did to produce these numbers. We did have, this is some information about the survey that was done and the responses. I already mentioned that the overwhelming response to the survey was, yes, please let us have residential chickens in Murray, or I don't want chickens, but I don't care if my neighbors have chickens. And that was the reason that we ultimately brought an ordinance forward to the Planning Commission and that they recommended approval to you as the City Council. And these are all slides are just kind of showing you that that data has been brought in and analyzed. The Planning Commission did, as we mentioned, vote to recommend approval of that draft ordinance that's 1767 to allow chicken keeping on residential properties in the city. This is single family residential properties. They would not be allowed on multifamily residential properties. That's the thing to remember, as well as the fact that Again, there's no permit, but a registration in place for us to deal with any complaints that we get. One of the other issues was code enforcement, and we worried about complaints. Zach did a lot of research with code enforcement agencies in the different cities in the valley and found that most of the time they don't have a huge number of chicken complaints. Only the really larger cities generated anything more than maybe a dozen. And we do feel like we can absorb that kind of need for enforcement. Any questions for staff about the proposed ordinance?
Council, does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, on your survey, it strikes me odd. Well, it doesn't strike me odd. It's higher for approval. Was that survey done of Murray residents?
That's a great question. It was made available online, and we promoted it through Murray's social media and through the mayor's newsletter. So I don't have any way to say that it was exclusive to Murray residents, but it was promoted through Murray's social media, et cetera. So I would assume that the large majority of respondents were Murray citizens.
Yeah, but there's no way to tell.
No way to know for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else from the council?
No.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing now. Jennifer, do you want to go ahead and lead us out in that?
Sure. We have a couple people online to do live comments. I'm not sure if the first ones are here. The first comment would be from Joseph or Emilius Silverswig. And I don't know if they're online or not. Doesn't look like they are. So I'll just put this one to a side. If they join before it ends, we'll go ahead and have them comment. The next comment would be from Mark Kessler. So Mark, you can go ahead and unmute your microphone and make your comment.
Very good, thank you. And I just want to start out with a little joke. Why did the chicken cross the road? To get to Murray City. And so it's nice that we're moving forward with this. I've kind of watched this go along, the public opinions and so forth go along to see where we're at now, and exciting that we're making a vote on it tonight. And I'm excited. I am for chickens. I did see the survey that came out in the mayor's newsletter and took that survey as well. And so my opinions were in there. And so I'm just grateful that we're making this happen. I grew up with chickens and have been around it my whole life, and they're a great family pet, great to have around to help us develop responsibility for the kids, and a good source of environmental reasons for fertilizer, pest control, and stuff like that. So thank you. It's just nice to see this move forward. And I'll end my comment.
Thank you. Jennifer, next.
Okay, the next comment I will read. It's from Rachel Rounds.
Should have said.
Sorry. Okay. Prior to starting my flock, I'd done years of research to find out what breeds I wanted to get and those which would be good layers and tolerant to our Utah weather. I learned about pest control, chicken illness, food types, and how to keep my flock safe. When I felt prepared, I took my kids to the farm store and we brought our first chicks. We were in love immediately. Their little peeps and cheeps were so cute. We don't have a garage, so we set up the border in my dining room. Yes, I sacrificed my dining room for 3 months to grow these little babes. It took 2 weeks to build our coop. We designed our own plans, making sure we had all the boxes ticked. Must allow enough room for each bird, nesting space, roosting space, distance from our home and our neighbors, and most importantly, to be pest-proof. We buried the fencing 8 inches into the ground and then bent it perpendicular to the soil and covered it with cement and gravel. We've never seen even one rat. We borrowed tools and saws and made 1 million trips to the hardware store and sustained an injury or two. We invited neighbors and family over for a good old-fashioned coop raising when we were ready for the finishing touches. Everyone was so excited to help give our ladies a home. The first night my lady spent in the coop, I was so nervous. You'd think I'd sent a real child off to college or something. But of course, the birds were fine the next morning, scratching and pecking in the run, just living the best chicken life. As we watched them grow, we learned their personalities and their behaviors. We called it Chicken TV And most nights after work, you could find us out in the yard on a blanket or sitting on lawn chairs just watching the show. Chickens are hysterical, naturally inquisitive, and just plain fun. We often have a chicken spa day, where we tend to their feet and nails, check their feet for injuries and infections, and make sure their combs are bright red, which reveals how healthy they are. I'm so happy that this issue is being reviewed. In those uncertain times, it's a comfort to know that with my garden and my chickens, I can provide food for my family. And I look at raising chickens like keeping a garden. Planting food does not require a license or fee or written permissions. You get to grow what you want on your property. Gardens can bring pests and become an eyesore to the neighborhood if not tended to properly. Chickens are no different. They provide food. They are tended to on my property. And they require some work to maintain. The biggest bonus is that I get to hug my chickens, not so much my tomato plants. I took the proposal outlined in the meeting on January 19th and was very constructive, a good starting point. The presentation of the survey results was encouraging. My only suggestion would be to change the limit on the amount of birds. Hens do not lay eggs every day, and if they become Brody, they will not lay at all. It is impossible to have a diverse flock in order to sustain a consistent egg supply. Salt Lake County has a limit based on zoning, and their ordinance mentions adult birds as well as chicks, just limits consisting of 6 birds with 4,000 square feet, 10 birds with 7,000 square feet, and 16 birds with 10,000 square feet. I believe this is closer to the proper number of hens needed to make it sensible to feed, tend, and maintain the flock with satisfactory benefits. Thank you for allowing me to present today. I look forward to an outcome which is amenable to all.
Anyone else, Jennifer?
Yeah, I've got 2 more.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. The next one is from Jeffrey Ingberson. Upon reading the proposed chicken ordinance, my thoughts are, citizens should be able to do with their land as they please, so long as it does not interfere with their neighbors' rights to quiet and peaceful enjoyment of their respective land. The proposed ordinance appears to conform to the upholding the rights of citizens to use their land without negative impact on those around them. I am in favor of the proposed ordinance. And the last comment we have is from Lynn and Marilyn Potter. A few years ago, when this issue came up, we provided each council member pictures and a video of our neighbor's yard who was keeping chickens. Unfortunately, I cannot find those pictures again to send to each of you. The smell of those unkept chickens, along with the flies, made outdoor enjoyment for my family impossible. I realize you will have a city ordinance on chicken keeping standards. However, who is going to enforce the ordinance? I would also like to remind you of the medical studies showing chickens can and do carry disease. Please do not allow chickens in our residential neighborhoods. Thank you for your consideration. And those are all the comments I have received for tonight.
All right, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment hearing now, portion of the hearing. Council members, do you guys have any comments or any discussion items you would like to bring forward? Again, I can't see you guys, so if I can get a yes or no.
Rosalba, I have a comment.
Go ahead, Diane.
Well, we voted on this about 4 years ago, right? I think about 4 years ago, and it was 2-3, and the mayor and I were 2. We were voted out anyway. And at that time, I said that it needs to be regulated because we walk our neighborhood, we hear chickens, and we know they're there. I've never had a complaint. I just, I'm supportive of this, and I think that we just need to make sure it's regulated and that they are good neighbors, and I think that's very possible. So anyway, I'm glad we brought it back. That's it.
Perfect. Anyone else?
Can I speak next?
Yes, go ahead, Kat.
So I just, the same lines of Diane, I don't see it as a matter of allowing or not allowing chickens. I see it as choosing to regulate the ones we have. Regulation's a great tool for giving guidance and education. And so I really appreciate heading in that direction. I'm also grateful that in this proposal, there's not a fee or permit required. I think I've heard that fees have been prohibitive for residents registering in other cities with the cost. So I think that not having that cost is going to be helpful in getting the most number of people to register. We have a lot of chickens in my neighborhood, not just my district, but like on my street. And I have no complaints so far from all the families. They seem well kept for, and I see all the neighborhood children learning about the cycle of life and how to take care of animals. And I've only seen it in a benefit for our area.
Yes, Diana's correct. I voted no last time, and I've had quite a few people that in my district that are asking for it. So.
I didn't say that. Dale, do you have any comments?
No, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, well, I will take a motion.
I would love to make this motion.
Go ahead, Kat.
I had to find my spot after I got excited. I move we adopt the ordinance enacting Chapter 17.67 of the Murray City Municipal Code related to residential chicken keeping standards.
I'll second.
All right, we got a first and a second. Any discussion to the motion? All right, Brooke, go ahead.
Ms. Turner,
Aye.
Mr. House,
Aye.
Ms. Martinez,
Aye.
Mr. Cox,
I'm not a big fan of chickens, but I know how Custer felt, and I don't want the same outcome, so I'll vote aye.
and Ms. Martinez, or Ms. Dominguez.
Aye.
Oh, dear.
Okay, it has passed. Thank you so much, everyone, and thank you, everyone, for your comments on this. We'll go ahead and move on to business item number 1 and consider the confirmation of the mayor's appointments to the Murray City Council or Murray City Public Safety Advisory Board. Mayor Camp, go ahead and present. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. If you remember back in July, the council approved the ordinance creating the Public Safety Advisory Board. And so this evening, I have the members who have been selected. I know usually this is done in a consent agenda as we discuss board members, but because this is a new board, first-time appointees, we felt like it would be good to do a quick presentation and a reminder of the purpose of the board and then to introduce the members. Unfortunately, I told all of the members that this is usually at the first of the meeting, and they've been very patient. 6 of the 7 are online, and I think the 7th is watching. But anyway, so if you'll bear with me for just a few minutes, I'll go through this. And Bill, could you put that PowerPoint up? Thank you. So just a reminder, again, the board was created in July. We opened an application period that went through September 30th to solicit applications for those who are interested. We advertised on the website, in the Murray Journal, and our social media. We conducted interviews in late October and early November. Then we got into the holidays. During that time, we made selections, and the final selections were made in January last month. So here we are now. So I'd like to just go through and just remind the council what this board is going to do. Most of this language comes out of the text of the ordinance. I'll go through it very, very quickly. The board is to represent concerns of diverse citizen groups and the broad interest of the community as a whole. The police chief and fire chief or their designee shall serve as advisors to the board. A purpose is to foster understanding and communication between residents and businesses of the city and public safety departments. Remember that we had talked about the need for looking at our policies and making sure that they're in line with where they should be, and communicating, improving the communication between the city residents, the city businesses, and our police and fire departments. And to review community needs and concerns, expectations, and responses related to the police and fire services. Also to advise and provide support for enhanced communication and education between the community and public safety departments, and to encourage the highest ethical standards in public safety. To promote the provision of quality public safety services to all residents with sensitivity, cultural understanding, and racial equality. And this may sum it all up. Strengthen throughout the community the application of equal protection under the law. So just as a reminder, the board is to consist of 7 members. All 7 members will be at large, with 5 being residents of the city, at least 5. And if you recall, the reason that we didn't do it by district is because we discovered that you could really, if you just go by district only, you can still stack one area of the city. It's better just to try and to spread them out. And that's what we found happened. 2 remaining members shall live or work in the city. As it turns out, all 7 are residents of the city. Now, their terms are for 3 years and can serve up to 2 consecutive terms. Now, the ordinance also says that the terms are to be staggered so that at least 2 terms will expire each year, but no more than 3 terms expire in a year. So in order to accomplish that, for the initial term, we are appointing 2 members tonight to serve for 1 year, 2 members to serve for 2 years, and 3 members to serve for 3 years. And then in the future, they'll all be 3-year terms. I will note too that the members who are serving for 1 year, that doesn't count as a term, so they could be appointed for 2 additional terms if they so desire. Meetings will be held regularly. The goal is monthly. Certainly, to get started, it'll be at least monthly. No less than 3 meetings per year by ordinance. They are open public meetings, and 4 members constitute a quorum. And as with most all of our boards and commissions, they will serve without compensation, and that says a lot about the caliber of the people that apply. Now, one thing that the ordinance did require is quite an aggressive amount of training in the first 6 months. And due to this pandemic that we've been dealing with, we recognize that we may not be able to get all of that training done in 6 months. But we recognize that, and I hope you do too, that we'll do it as we can. And that includes a ride-along, at least 2 shifts with the police and 1 with fire, and some other training requirements that are in the ordinance. So now, having said all that, I want to introduce the board members. I'll go through and introduce them, and then, like I say, 6 of them are online. So if you would like any of them to say something, or if they would like to speak, I would appreciate you giving them that opportunity. I'll go through them alphabetically by last name, but I also want to point out that one of the things that we tried to do is to get a diverse group. And when I say diverse, I'm diverse in backgrounds, life experience, geographical diversity within the city. And I think we're pretty successful in doing that. And if you've had an opportunity to look at their resumes, you'll see what I'm talking about. If you haven't, I would encourage you to. I'm going to just mention a couple of things out of each one of them's resume about their experience, so you can see again, the caliber. volunteers that we have. So I'll start with Deborah Crane. She will serve initially for a 2-year term, and she has a wealth of volunteer experience that she brings. Also, she's been an educator, both teacher and an administrator, and along with that, experience as a sales representative. And her late husband had law enforcement experience also, so she brings that. She knows about law enforcement, so she will be a great asset. Next is Allie Garrison, who will serve for a 3-year term. Allie has experience in nonprofit organizations, experience in technology systems, experience in creating policies and procedures, experience in applications, training, and support, and even has experience as a constable and correction officer. So again, a very well-rounded background and one that will be very helpful on our board. Next is Scott Goodman. Scott will serve a 3-year term. He also has, Scott has served our country in the U.S. Army for over 30 years. He received the Defense Meritorious Service Medal and the Bronze Star from the Department of Defense. He is a distribution manager and safety manager at a local building products business. And he is a level 2 coach of Murray Taylorsville mountain bike team. So Scott will be great. Next is Brian Lorkey, who will also serve a 3-year term. He has over 20 years of experience in law enforcement, media relations, and emergency management. He has his law enforcement experience includes patrol, detective, supervisory, as well as administration. And Brian has experience in developing a field training officer program, which will be very helpful on this board. And he has also worked as a school resource officer. So Brian will be a great asset to the board as well. Next is Wayne Manu, who will serve a 2-year term. Wayne has experience in education, including teaching, curriculum development, and working with at-risk youth, as well as gifted youth. So he has a lot of experience in working with youth. He has experience as a coach, a family service counselor, customer service representative, and preparation of public events. So very, very well-rounded. He currently works as an assistant medical coordinator for Chrysalis, which is an organization serving individuals with disabilities. John Prestwich will serve a 1-year term. John brings extensive experience in sales, management, team building, and communication skills, and experience in customer service. He has experience working with many large corporations such as Boeing, Wells Fargo, IBM, Microsoft, and many others. John's a lifelong Murray resident with very deep Murray roots. And his ability to interact with individuals at all levels will be a great asset to this board. And finally, Andrea Washburn to serve a 1-year term. Andrea has been a small business owner for over 14 years, requiring managing multiple projects simultaneously, as well as organizing and managing personnel. She's also a facility manager for a local nonprofit, The In-Between, which provides end-of-care life for critically ill, unsheltered people. She has also provided volunteer work for Big Brothers and Big Sisters, The In-Between, and Visions of Altitude, which is a homeless youth resource center. So there you see the caliber of individuals, and if you would like to ask any of them to say anything, or if they would like to, I believe, like I say, 6 of the 7 are on the meeting.
Yeah, I welcome anyone if you would like to say anything, raise your hand. I can see you guys. Anyone would like? No? Hi, just anyone would like to share any comments or concerns from the
I would just like to make a comment and thank them so much for their willingness to serve our community. I think it's a really important board, so I'm so glad you were willing to do it. Thank you.
Anyone else on the council?
Yeah, I just want to, this is Brett, but I just want to say the same thing. Mayor, you did a great job. Wonderful, wonderful applicants. And is Mr. Manu, is he on?
I think he was.
He's the only one that wasn't, huh?
I think he was watching.
Okay.
On the
Just
live
gonna ask him
stream.
if he's related to a friend of mine. So.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Thanks. Anyway, we're excited.
Well, I just again thank all of you. It looks like you're all going to be. It looks like they're all going to be shy. So, actually, it's been a long meeting. They probably just want to get off the call.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys. Anyone else from the council? Would you like to say anything? Okay. Well, I appreciate all of you on. I do have a question, Mayor. I did notice that some were 1 and 2 in terms of years. If you would be up to, even for Mr. Manu, to have a 3-year term. I don't know if that's a choice or something we can do, GL, or suggest.
Well, like I said, the reason we staggered them is, and staggered the ones that we did, the way we staggered them, has to do with making sure that we have the individuals in different areas, geographical areas of the town, of the city represented. And I anticipate that both of the individuals, if they're willing to continue to serve, will be reappointed for a new term. So really, the 1 year is a bonus year.
All right. Well, thank you, Mayor. And lastly, I just wanted to say I've kind of done a little bit of research, and Brian, you come really highly recommended by some of your fellow officers in UDP, Rudy Chacon being very specific. So thank you so much for being willing to participate on this board.
Absolutely. Rudy's a character. Miss working with him.
Yes. So thank you again for your service and everything you've done. And I've heard nothing but great things about you. So I appreciate that.
Nice job, Rosalba. You got him to talk. I mean, I love it.
I was trying. All right. Well, I will take a motion from anybody.
I'll put my glasses on and make this motion. I'm excited. We're just appreciative, as we said earlier, and thanks, Mayor, for your applicants. I move to approve confirmation of the mayor's appointments to the Murray City Public Safety Advisory Board. And we'll just take them all.
I'll second.
Okay. Got a motion and a second. Brooke, go ahead.
Ms. Turner,
Aye.
Mr. House,
Aye.
Ms. Martinez,
Aye.
Mr. Cox,
Aye.
and Ms. Dominguez.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. It has been passed. So welcome everyone to the Murray family, and we really look forward to hear from you all in the future. So thank you so much. And you guys don't have to stay, but you're welcome to, and tough this out with us, but you're welcome to leave. Thank you so much. All right. So we are going to go to item number 2 on our business agenda and consider an ordinance amending section 2.62.120 of the Murray City Municipal Code relating to employee holidays. Dale Cox will be presenting. Mr. Cox.
Okay, thank you. I'll be brief. What this does is amend the yearly holidays to include 4 hours on Christmas Eve. In the past, some people have it, some people don't, and I think it's best to they use their own time or they take time off. I think Christmas is a great family time to spend with your family, and this ordinance would affect Christmas when it wouldn't affect Christmas when it falls on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, because they already have, if the holiday falls on Saturday, they get Friday off. Falls on Sunday, they have Saturday off. Falls on Monday, they already have Sunday off, so they have the time off. So it has a fiscal note of about $24,000 for the years that we have it, but I think it's important that we give all of our employees that time off to spend with their family. With that, I'll take any questions.
That's Christmas Eve, correct?
Christmas Eve, 4 hours.
Thank you, Dale.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? No? Okay. I will take a motion.
I'll move to adopt the ordinance amending section 2.62.120 of the Murray City Municipal Code relating to employee holidays.
I'll second.
Okay, Brooke?
Ms. Turner,
Aye.
Mr. House,
Aye.
Ms. Martinez,
Aye.
Mr. Cox,
Aye.
and Ms. Dominguez.
Aye. All right, that has passed. Thank you so much, everyone. And last on the agenda, we will be looking at considering an ordinance establishing a temporary land use regulation pursuant to Utah Code and section 10-9A-504 relating to mixed use developments within the city. GL will be presenting. Thank you so much, GL.
Thank you, Councilwoman Dominguez. Let me give you a little bit of background first on what this is, a temporary land use regulation. This comes out of state law and it allows us, us being the municipal legislative body, without prior consideration or a recommendation from the Planning Commission, to pass an ordinance that establishes a temporary land use regulation. To do that, the City Council needs to make a finding of compelling countervailing public interest. And if we do this, if you pass this, it cannot exceed 6 months. The way this came about was, I think in large part, a convergence of applications as well as inquiries for the mixed use zone. And we have really fundamentally 3 mixed use zones. We have the mixed use zone itself, the Murray City Center District, and the Transit Oriented Development District, and felt like it would be important to include each of those in this temporary land use regulation. But in any event, what we're talking about tonight is whether the City Council finds a compelling interest, which essentially is a substantial risk to the public health, safety, or welfare that could be addressed by a temporary land use regulation. You know of Mr. Hallen's application. There's other applications that you've seen, the sports mall application as well as the RC Willie application, I'll call it. And there was some discussion between Melinda and I tonight. I should apologize. She and I will get on the same page, and we will talk about this in terms of vested rights and who's vested and who isn't. But what happened was there have been many inquiries. I'd say I've heard up to about 10 inquiries of developers who want to do mixed use developments. And in a conversation that we had and I had later with Public Works, Danny Astle, and in particular Trey Stokes, our city engineer. Danny Astle is our Public Works director. There was some concern expressed about the adequacy of the public infrastructure, water, wastewater, transportation. There's been some concern, police and fire and access, and I think it has to do with, in part, our limited experience with mixed use and the higher density proposals and higher density that exists in Murray. I think in a nutshell, I could probably summarize it this way, and that is that there is when the Public Works looks at a project or looks at the general plan, they look to see what infrastructure needs to be added. And I think what's been a challenge to them is some of these developments have been coming in asking for a rezone and a general plan amendment where it doesn't show that on the future land use map. You heard Jared's presentation tonight, and planners have a very long view of planning, which is fine, nothing wrong with that. And there's some, clearly there's some merit to realizing that the population is growing and will continue to grow. Having said that, it is a challenge to Public Works to have a rezone that they did not anticipate and then go and try to figure out, do we have the capacity for this? Transportation in particular is very difficult, and as Danny explained to me, Danny Astle, they have a level of service which they apply to each intersection, and that tells them what they have to do to make it safe and to accommodate a development. And the concern is that when some of these developments come in that they did not anticipate, they're not sure they can handle them at all. If it's going to make the intersection fail or whatever else. And so there's been a request to have some time to look at this and to kind of get a handle on that. There's been some discussion with the city council, in fact, about the higher densities and the concerns with traffic and parking congestion. That's typically one of the concerns that police and fire has, is always getting access when you have dense developments and you have a lot of parking congestion. That's their concern. But all in all, if you'll take a look at the ordinance that's proposed, it talks about the city council's concern with the proliferation of high density mixed use developments and being able to provide essential public services. It also points out that Public Works is currently revising the city's master transportation plan, is not yet complete with that, would like to complete that so they can take a look at some of these developments to see if they can actually accommodate them. And some inquiries they've had, they're not sure they really can. There's also the sewer, the wastewater master plan. They want to look at the sewer capacity. There's, as I said before, the parking capacity. And sometimes when you get these densities and we have our parking ratios, sometimes what we intended doesn't work, and that is something else that we need to look at, I believe. And then, of course, the compelling public interest, of course, is that you want to have sufficient capacity for public infrastructure, for essential services. You want to make sure that the parking does not affect neighboring residential areas, and that police and fire have good access. And based on those concerns, it's proposed that the city council pass this temporary land use regulation that would not exceed 180 days. And within that 180 days, that Melinda and her planning division take a look at this, come to the city council, and possibly pass another ordinance, possibly not. When they look at this with the public infrastructure, that's something they'll have to come up with, and whether they need to change that or not. But that's time that I think would be valuable for the city to be able to take a look at this, look at the densities, look at the traffic, and look at public transit, and how close we are to public transit in some of these areas, and then come back and decide if we need to have some changes to the mixed use ordinances. That's in a nutshell. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Anyone have any questions?
Yes, Rosalba, I have a comment, maybe a question. I'm not sure, but
go ahead.
GL, and Mayor, I really appreciate what I see is kind of giving us a break so we can further research and make sure that what we're doing is the right thing. We've been getting all of these. I mean, it feels like a lot. Maybe 3 or 4 isn't a lot, but to us it is, because it's so important. Requesting changes to our general plan, and especially for mixed use. And I just think that perhaps we can step back and look at it and maybe be a little creative and, maybe, I don't know, just make sure that we're doing what's right for the areas that we're looking at, because we really are determining what our city's going to look like for many, many years to come. So this is really important, what we're doing, and it's really important for our citizens. And so I just want to make sure we're doing the right thing. So thank you for doing that.
One thing to keep in mind also is that 6 months is not a very long time.
I know.
And this is going to be a lot of work for Melinda and her division. So I hope you can be patient, but also hang in there, and we'll talk to Public Works and see if we can't come back to you and have a good discussion and then make some decisions.
Yeah, our city's direction is so important. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think this is the direction that we need to go. So thank you, Mayor and administration, all those involved, Jill. Thank you. So yeah, this is going to be it's a necessity right now, and we know 6 months is going to go fast. I mean, 2020 is over, so it goes fast. Thanks.
Anyone else have any questions? I have I guess it's a comment. So currently right now, this would just put a hold on all the applicants who are wanting to apply from CD or commercial development to MU, right?
Yeah, so my understanding is there are have been multiple inquiries from developers looking into this and conceptually speaking with our planners. That would stop that for the 6 month period.
So in that time, we do the research, and then how would we have a workshop with economic development?
I would defer to Melinda on that. I think that her office will take the lead and give you some good direction, and I would suggest you talk to her about that.
How do you envision, how do you envision this to go forward, Melinda?
Yeah, so my understanding of the moratorium is that it will put a 6-month hold on any projects that would come in, whether that's a conditional use permit, whether that's a design approval, whether that is a concept plan. We will not take in any applications for a 6-month window. For as long as the council passes as this is, it would be the MCCD zone, the TOD zone, and the mixed use zone. So that gives us as staff, in theory, enough breathing room to have the dialogue with the city council through workshops or individual meetings to try and ascertain what the what the better solutions or better options would be for some of the zoning. And what I would envision is that we would want to work with developers to understand what would work for them. And we would want to work, obviously, again, with our elected officials. We would want some input from the Planning Commission. Those are the stakeholders that we would definitely need to have at the table through the process. And Evelyn also, this would put a stop on Evelyn submitting any projects as well. And so we need to revisit timelines with them. But we can also, I think, be a little bit clever in the way that we move forward through these zoning the different zones and kind of pick the low hanging fruit. And I would envision that because we've gone through a couple of revisions on the MCCD zone in the last couple of years, one in 2019 and then the one in 18, I think, or the end of 17 where they changed the height. I would think that those zones are more in line with what can work as far as all the utility services and those types of things. So we can try and work through some of those a little bit more quickly. But in total, the 6-month period counts. It counts for every step of the process, and really to do any type of a text amendment, even a small text amendment can take that long, just because we have to take it to Planning Commission before it comes to you for a recommendation. And so it's definitely 6 months is not a lot of time. I was talking with my staff earlier today, and I said, let's do some of the scientific wild guesses on math and like how many of our applications come in are in these 3 zones, and it's very few of them. And so, our workload won't really sufficiently decrease, but, we're committed to try and work this through as quickly as we can, as long as we can get it worked through and have a good solution. Because this is the future of the community that you guys have all been elected to serve, and the ones that we have chosen to serve with our jobs and work, and the developers want to come and develop here and they own the property. And so we'll have to just work quickly, collectively, to try and get a solution and some options on the table.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions to that, or?
I just want to say I appreciate that information. Melinda and GL, thank you for the explanation. I think mixed use is definitely in Murray's future, but just making sure how we do it is strategic, is in the right places, and within the right constraints, so it best fits each piece of our community. So I'm really grateful we're taking the time to sharpen that tool. Thank you.
Anyone else? Last question I have, are you foreseeing either using outside help to help kind of do some of this research, or hiring? I mean, I kind of see a fiscal note on this without seeing it. So I just want to make sure you have the support that you need, and because 6 months is a short period of time, and I would like to do this right.
Yeah, I mean, actually, as we've discussed this with my planning division staff the last couple of days, I mean, they did ask if there is any type of a budget for this, and the answer to that, at least at this point, is no. And so, it does. And the question was like a budget for a consultant or that type of. For that type of assistance. And I think that honestly, this is the type of work that we can do in-house. We have that skill and that expertise. It's just pacing things. And we never really can control our workload. A lot of the projects, you would think that we would have a slowdown like in the fall, winter, but that's oftentimes when things ramp up because developers want to break ground in the spring. And so, we'll just have to pace ourselves and see how it goes. I think, could we get probably the MCCD and the TOD zone knocked out within the next 6 months and a good portion of the mixed use? Yeah, but I don't know if we could get all the way there on all 3 zones. That's a lot, but we'll do our best.
Okay, thank you. I had another question, but it was just kind of relation to that and making sure we give you the support that you need. And that's the question. So our applicants are held off for 6 months, but does that add 6 months to their application process, or how do we go about that? Yes. They applied.
So what would happen is that, again, and this would only hold to what is currently on the books for the zoning designations on the current land use map or the zone map. So not applicable to our future land use map that we were talking about in the general plan. This is the current zoning. So we really, it's anything over the fire clay area. That's essentially the TOD. Any application that would come through in there. I know we've been working on a couple of projects over there, and over the last 2 years that I've been here. So those, we would have to tell them that, they would have to wait the 6 months. There's a few projects in the MCCD zone. Obviously, we have the Elam project. We've been working with a couple other developers on a couple of projects. And then anything in the mixed use zone, which is really kind of I'm looking at the zone map right now, and I suppose if I was really smart, I could have Jared could pull that up while we're talking, Jared, and you could share the map so that we could help the council kind of at least visually understand the areas of the city that we're impacting. So the math I'm trying to look at here is like, we're really talking about a fraction of the city. And so anything else in any of the rest of the zones, the single family zones, all of our conditional use permits that we process all the time in the commercial zone, RNB, all of that is still going to be applications that we would take in and process. But I think, thanks, Jared, I think to answer your question, so no, it wouldn't add 6 months to the process of an application that would come in for the TOD zone or the mixed use zone. It would be us saying, I'm sorry, we can't take this application from you until this date, or until, let's say that we were able to get all of this done within 5 months. It's until the work is done, or a maximum of 6 months. And so if we ended up taking 9 months on the mixed use zone, we would not be able to tell an applicant or turn an applicant away after the 6 months. We would have to take the application in. The zoning that's on the books right now would stand, and they would be vested in that application. So
okay. That's what I wanted to understand, and make sure that they're comfortable too, and that they know that they're, I guess, essentially in line.
Yeah, so they wouldn't, really, we wouldn't start even taking applications or forming a line until the 6 months, and then they could submit an application.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any questions?
Jared, if it's okay, just, share your map again. And if you kind of just want to show the council, and it's really small there, but if you look up at the top of the map in the kind of peachy color, we have the TOD zone. Over on the, we have, in fact, I got an email today from Kimball's on the Kmart property. Does this impact them? No, it does not, because they have a fully vested application. Their project's already been approved. They have the MOU in place. They have their demolition permit. This does not impact the Kimball Kmart project at all. They are moving forward as it was approved. The MCCD zone, our downtown, that dark orange, anything that would come forward in that zone would be put on a 6-month pause. And then we have the mixed use, where Jared's going over the cursor right now, right there on the west side of the I-15 between 48th and Vine, and then on the east side of the I-15, basically between the tracks and the I-15. So those are the areas that that would be impacted. We don't right now have any other zoning in place other than those 4 areas. But as I mean, we get calls and we have meetings and conversations all the time with, you know, I mean, I could ramble off probably another half dozen of conversations we've had in the last few months of people that want to look at doing mixed use in other areas. And so that does give us reprieve, you know, from those applications as well. So we wouldn't process any general plan amendments or any zone map amendments to go to those zones until that 6-month period would expire.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Anybody else have any comments or questions?
No.
Thank you, Kat. All right, I guess I will take a motion on this.
Okay, I'll make a motion to adopt the ordinance establishing a temporary land use regulation pursuant to Utah Code annotated section 10-9A-504 relating to mixed use developments within the city.
I'll second.
All right, thank you. I got a first and a second. Brooke?
Ms. Turner?
Aye.
Mr. Held?
Aye.
Mrs. Martinez?
Aye.
Mr. Cox?
Aye.
And Ms. Dominguez?
Aye. All right. Sorry, that's me. All right, it passes. And thank you everyone for that. And thank you, Melinda and Jared, for answering our questions, especially mine. So, gosh, my screen just kind of went weirded out. All right, we will go ahead and finish off with the mayor. Go ahead, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. It's been a very long meeting, and I don't have anything that's time sensitive or that can't go into council communications. So I'll just answer any questions if you have any questions.
All right, and nobody has any questions. All right, well, thank you so much. This meeting is adjourned, and thank you everyone for your time and patience in this meeting. Have a great day, or evening, I should say. Bye-bye.